go. Oh. I don't like it. Hello. I have so many drinks at all times. I make giant coasters. It's actually a pot holder. No, good. Should I just add some like a plant or something up here? One of my dinosaur plants. I think I might. Hi everybody who's coming in and out. You come in, make sure you at least tap once. Finishing up this jumper. I think we'll win Yarn Chicken. That's exciting. And I need to finish this tonight because I told my kid he could wear it tomorrow to school. But when we were like trying it on, it seemed a little tight, but like low-key that's the vibe I was going for because like I didn't want it to be oversized on him because I wanted him to actually like it and wear it like right now. And then I also wanted, I know how much this yarn stretches because my sweater that's basically in this same brand. It's the same kind. But anyways, my sweater stretched a whole lot and I was like, that's a vibe. And so I'm just gonna steam the heck out of this and call it a day. But I put it on him and I pinned it, so hopefully I get the neck hole and rest of these shoulders right. I hope everyone who's coming here for a tutorial for this swamp sweater, y'all are not expecting much from me. Tomorrow's the big live. This one's just, hi, thanks for the likes. I don't know who's doing it. Hi guys. Welcome. But tomorrow's the Big Hook Club live. We're gonna start on the swamp sweater, so I'll start filming for that, and then I'll hop on live, and then go from there. I have to film for other things too, so very busy morning. We're gonna get up, take the spawn to school. He hasn't been feeling too great today, so he's been kind of laying around today. But he wanted to go to school tomorrow, so he's gonna go. And then I start my 3 days of hustling. Thanks for all the likes. Meow. Meow. I don't know what's up with my eyes today. Like, it might be how bright this light is. It's totally how bright the light was. Y'all just gonna have to deal with that, because I feel like I should have done one sleeve flat so that the stripes go up and down for that too, so it matches like the actual sweater. But that was a lot. That would be a lot of work and like measurement maybe. I don't know how I would do that. I guess I would just do it however you would work anything flat, and I would have just had to sew that one on first and then do the in the round. Anyone else like stretch out their yarn as they're working it, just to kind of get a feel for that, like what it's gonna be like? Because like we naturally pull it anyways while we're doing this, so might as well complete the process. Some people are talking about like making up a crochet like hook club Discord. I think that would be really cool, but like I never got into Discord or like started, like I never did that, so I don't know. I guess that would be something that I would have to like play around with and like hope someone actually makes that so I don't have to mod that. I'm not doing that. Maybe one day in the future, I can't speak. I also mostly mumble because like I'm trying to be quiet because everyone's asleep in my house when I do the late night ones, and we don't close the doors in the apartment, so like I don't know, I know neither one of them's actually going to wake up because they sleep through everything. And the man's was sleeping on the beanbag yesterday during the live, and he wasn't waking up. I was talking just fine, so I don't know why I'm like geeking out about it tonight. Hello. I love all the likes. All the love. I can't wait to finish look at him. Oh, I'm so excited. He's gonna look so good tomorrow. So good. He's gonna look so good. I'm so excited. Welcome back, my loves. Oh my gosh. Y'all missed the sweater reveal. It's so close to being done. I'm so excited. Hello, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Thank you. Ugh. Should we do something educational again to like listen to in the background so we can all learn something and maybe like chat about it? Let's see what's on the YouTube. I'll go back. The Sleepy Paleontologist.
Hello, sleepy thinkers and curious minds. Before we sink into the depths of deep time together, tell me,
Yeah, it's paleontologist.
where in the world are you watching from? Whether you are drifting off in a coat.
Have you ever heard a whisper in the quiet of the night?
We're looking for something educational and fun to listen to. While we do this, Science for Sleep. Marina Trench.
Hello there, and welcome to Science for Sleep, where curiosities.
I love this. I love this channel. Am I subscribed to him? I need to be. Because this dude, I swear to God, it's the same guy. But he has like a bajillion YouTubes and he just tells you things and like talks and like has whole
Hello there.
like
and
it's
welcome to
2
Science
hours
for
worth of
Sleep,
content
where
and
curiosity slows down and science takes the long meandering
It's great.
path that lets your mind wander into comfort. Tonight, I'd like to take you somewhere not many have gone, at
Oh,
least
yeah.
not in person, though all of us have heard whispers of it.
just subscribe.
It's a place on our own planet, yet it feels more distant and mysterious than the moon or Mars. A place so deep, so dark and so strange that for most of human history, it was left entirely to imagination. Mariana Trench, Earth's deepest abyss. Before we sink gently toward those shadowy waters, let me ask you something. Where in the world are you listening from tonight? Are you close to the coast, where the ocean breathes in and out at the shore?
Not.
Or are you somewhere far inland where the
Midwest.
sea is just a distant thought? Maybe you've stood by the edge of the water, watching waves roll endlessly, and wondered how far they go, how deep they fall. Or maybe the sea is something you only know from pictures, screens, and stories. Either way, right
I
now,
hope
you
one
and I are
day
about to drift
I
together
become one of
into a
those
part of that
TikTokers
vast
that
ocean
people are
that
like,
almost no one will ever see
yo,
with their own
I
eyes.
know you know this
Strange
person.
thought, isn't it?
And then everyone's
Most of
like,
Earth's surface is covered by water.
I don't know
Places
this
beneath
person.
are less familiar than the surface of distant
But, like,
planets. If you find
Those
comfort in journeys
those
like
handful
this
of people who are
one,
like,
slow
I know you know
explorations
this
that
person
invite you to
because
learn,
of,
wonder, and maybe even doze along the way, I'd be
That's why I
grateful
want
if you
to be.
gave this a like or subscribed. It helps this
I
little
want
corner
like
of
a
calm
handful of
reach
people
others
to be like,
who might need a gentle pause
I
in
know
their
you
day
know this person,
or
and then
a
everyone
quiet
else be like,
night.
mm-mm,
Thank you for being here.
no idea.
Thank you for bringing your curiosity with you. Now let's begin to let go of the surface. Picture yourself at the shoreline for just a moment. The horizon looks wide and calm, maybe dotted with ships or seabirds. But under those rolling waves lies an entire world stacked downward in layers. Imagine swimming
Empty.
down past the familiar waters, where sunlight still shines bright enough to see fish darting and corals branching.
It gets sour.
If you kept going, you'd pass the point where the sunlight fades to a dim
Not bad.
twilight, where shapes grow faint and colours fade to blues and greys. Keep descending, and even that dim light vanishes. This is where the true deep begins, a place of permanent night. And if you had the endurance to keep going still, far below even that silent dark, you would eventually arrive at a cut in the ocean floor, a wound in the crust of the earth itself, plunging deeper than Mount Everest is tall.
Almost.
That is the Mariana Trench. It sits quietly in the western Pacific Ocean, east of the Philippines and south of Japan, curving like a giant scar across the seabed. It stretches over 1,500 miles long, which is about the distance from Los Angeles to Kansas City. But it is its depth, not its length, that has fascinated explorers and scientists alike. At its deepest point, known as Challenger Deep, it reaches nearly 11 kilometres below sea level. That's about 36,000 feet. If you dropped Mount Everest into the trench, the summit would still be hidden beneath more than a mile of water. Just pausing on that number for a moment, it's hard to imagine what that much water above you would even feel like. The pressure down there is over 1,000 times greater than at the surface. It's the kind of pressure that could crush a human body instantly, collapse steel and squeeze air into something unrecognizable. Yet somehow, against all odds, life has found a way to exist even there. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before we drift too far into those depths, it's worth remembering that for most of human history, the ocean itself was already mysterious enough without worrying about what lay at its bottom. The trench was unknown to the sailors and explorers of ancient times. They had no tools to measure its depth. To them, the sea itself was already endless and terrifying, full of storms, unpredictable winds, and the sense that monsters might lurk beneath. The idea of a trench, deeper than the tallest mountains, would have been unthinkable, so they told stories instead. Tales of giant serpents pulling ships into the deep, of whirlpools that swallowed fleets whole, of gods and spirits ruling unseen realms below the waves. The ocean was treated almost like another sky, unfathomable and untouchable. Even today, the trench remains more legend than reality for most people. We know it's there. We can read its statistics. We can watch a video clip or see a diagram in a textbook, but those numbers don't sink in easily. 11 kilometres down, pressure of 1,100 times the air around us now. Darkness so absolute that only light made by the creatures themselves can be seen. That gap between knowing and truly grasping the scale is part of why the trench still feels so mysterious. It's not just a fact to memorise, it's an environment so extreme that it challenges imagination. As we continue this journey, we won't rush. There's no need. The trench isn't going anywhere. It has been there for millions of years, carved by the movement of Earth's tectonic plates. It will be there long after us. So we can take our time to drift downwards slowly, letting curiosity unfold
Thanks for all
layer
the
by
likes,
layer.
Craft.
We'll explore
Is that
how the
Biddy?
trench was discovered,
Crafts by
how it has
Biddy.
been measured, and what creatures live in its shadows. We'll meet the submarines and robots that have dared to visit it, and we'll look at the strange connection between this abyss and the search for life beyond Earth. We'll even ask what it means that our own trash has reached the very bottom of the world. But for now, just notice the feeling of letting the surface slip away. Think about the last time you stared into the sea, whether from a beach, a pier, or even an airplane window. Did you ever wonder what lies beneath, how
All
deep
the
it
time.
goes, or whether anyone has ever reached those places? Tonight, that's exactly where we're heading. Not with flippers or ropes, but with thought and story. Because in its own way, the Mariana Trench is as much a frontier as the edge of space.
Shameless plug, like,
It's a reminder
this
that
dude
even
is
here on Earth,
great. I love
mystery
all
still
of the
surrounds us,
channels.
waiting patiently in the
I
dark.
think the same
So,
person makes.
With the waves quiet above us and the long descent just beginning,
This one
we can
is
drift
Science
gently
Before
toward the edge of
Sleep.
the map, the point
On
where
YouTube.
human knowledge once ended and imagination began. For much of human history, the ocean itself was a kind of edge of the map. before satellites and sound waves and submarines, the sea was more mystery than knowledge. People could cross it, sail upon it, harvest fish from its surface, but what lay beneath remained hidden. The shoreline was a familiar boundary. Stand on the sand and you can see the waves, hear their crash, feel their pull. But once a boat pushed out far enough that land disappeared, the world changed. There were no landmarks, no roads, just an expanse so wide and restless that it often seemed endless. It's no wonder that early maps drew dragons and serpents in the blank spaces of the ocean, because when the known world ran out, imagination filled in the rest. In many cultures, the sea was not just a body of water, it was a living presence. To the Polynesian navigators, it was a pathway of stars and swells that could guide them across thousands of
Go that way for a
miles.
minute.
To the Norse, it was a realm ruled by gods and giants, a place where storms and monsters waited just beyond the horizon. In ancient Greece, the sea was the domain of Poseidon, unpredictable and powerful.
Alright, so
Across the
like,
world, you find myths of creatures
no.
lurking beneath
One.
the waves, leviathans, krakens, spirits, and
Pencil, thank you.
demons. These were not
So
just
we're
stories to pass
here.
the time. They were ways of explaining the
why are
unknown,
you here?
giving
Oh,
shape to the
the
unease
Martin
people
thing.
felt when staring out
So
into waters that could not be
1,
measured or
2,
controlled.
3.
The truth is, even shallow depths were once beyond reach. Sailors might lower ropes with weights tied to them to gauge how far down
3
the
more?
seafloor was. But this was practical only in coastal waters. The deeper the ocean, the more impossible it became. Ropes would drift in currents, weights would snag, and after a few hundred meters, even the strongest efforts became unreliable. Imagine standing on a
They're
deck,
both blue.
letting ropes slip through your hands for hours, knowing it may never
Perfect.
touch bottom. For centuries, that was as close as anyone could come to probing the depths. The ocean floor might as well have been another planet. Still, curiosity persisted. Human beings are rarely content with mystery for long. By the 16th and 17th centuries, when European explorers were crossing oceans to map new
We
lands,
have to finish
they also
this
began to
tonight
wonder what lay beneath the waves
and steam
themselves.
it.
As maps of continents
So
filled in,
that's what we're
the
going to
seas
do.
remained vast blank spaces. Here be dragons, one mapmaker famously wrote in the margins. Whether the dragons were real or not didn't matter. The phrase captured the truth. Beyond the known edges, anything was possible. For the people who lived their lives on the sea, uncertainty wasn't just an abstract question, it was a daily reality. Fishermen wondered what shaped the currents that carried their boats. Traders wanted to know why storms appeared without warning. Sailors felt the ocean's moods firsthand, sometimes calm, sometimes violent, always larger than them. Every ripple of the surface hinted at secrets below, and yet for most of human history those secrets remained untouched. The ocean was as much a ceiling as it was a floor. People looked out, not down. The Mariana Trench itself lay hidden through all of this. It sat in a remote corner of the Pacific, far from the main shipping routes of ancient trade, far from the coastal settlements where most human life concentrated. For thousands of years it was simply unknown, the deepest part of the sea, invisible and silent, waiting in the dark while civilizations rose and fell above it. The fact that such a vast feature of our own planet could remain unseen for so long says a great deal about just how unreachable the ocean depths were. When you think about the early attempts to measure the sea, it almost feels quaint now. Sailors would tie cannonballs to long ropes and lower them over the side, watching them vanish into the water. The rope uncoiled endlessly, and still no bottom was found. Sometimes the rope would stretch and break. Other times it would stop, and they could record a number, though no one was sure if it had hit true seafloor or just snagged on an underwater ridge. Each attempt carried with it both frustration and wonder. To think that beneath the boat there might be miles of open water, and below that, land no one could touch. These experiments slowly expanded human understanding, but the vast majority of the ocean floor remained unmapped. For people in those times, the sea's bottom was almost mythical. It was a place no one could reach, where unknown creatures might lurk, and where the earth itself might hold surprises. The idea of an abyss so deep it dwarfed mountains would have been unimaginable, and so the sea retained its place as the edge of the world, both physically and mentally. What's fascinating is how the human mind fills in gaps. Without direct knowledge, people invented explanations. Some believed the ocean had no bottom at all, that it was an endless void beneath the waves. Others thought it must be shallow everywhere, that the seafloor couldn't be far away. Myths blended with guesses. Guesses became beliefs, and beliefs shaped entire worldviews. The ocean was both feared and revered, a source of life and a threat of death. Its true nature remained hidden, and that made it powerful. Even into the 19th century, the deep sea was still largely a mystery. Ships sailed faster, trade grew larger, but the ocean depths resisted human understanding. It wasn't until new technologies arrived that the edge of the map began to shift downward. With stronger ropes, better weights, and eventually, with the invention of sonar in the 20th century, people could finally begin to peel back the curtain. The Mariana Trench was revealed only gradually. A sound wave sent downward reflected back from the floor deeper than anyone had ever imagined. But for the centuries before that, the trench remained hidden under blank spaces on the map. And blank spaces have a power of their own. They invite stories, they invite fear, and they invite dreams. The edge of the map isn't just a physical boundary, it's a mental one too. Standing at that edge, humans have always looked outward and asked what might lie beyond. In the age before soundings and sonar, this
Disgusting.
Hit pause on whatever you're listening to and hit play on your next adventure. This fall, get double points on every qualified stay. Life's a trip. Make the most of it at Best Buster. Visit bestbuster.com for complete terms and conditions.
Why do it? Make it everything you have is
Americans, we can do anything we want, except one thing.
the sea itself was that question mark, and the Mariana Trench was its most secret answer, waiting in silence far below. And so, as we think about those blank maps, about sailors staring into horizons and wondering where the sea ended, how recently the trench entered human knowledge at all. We may take it for granted now, a line of data on charts, a number to memorize. But for most of our history, the abyss beneath the Pacific was nothing more than a story untold. When people first tried to measure the ocean in a more serious way, they weren't just curious, they were practical. Mariners needed to know how deep waters were near coast to avoid running aground. Naval commanders wanted to understand seafloor conditions for anchoring ships or planning routes. Fishermen wanted to know where certain catches were likely to gather. First, these needs were met with the same simple tools that have been used for centuries: a length of rope and a heavy weight, often a piece of ledge shaped to sink straight down. The method was called sounding. It worked well enough in shallow water, but when used in the open ocean, it was like trying to measure the height of the sky with a ladder. A rope could stretch for hundreds of meters, but beyond that it became unmanageable. Imagine standing on the deck of a wooden ship, with the wind tugging at the sails and the waves tossing you side to side, as coils of rope unspool endlessly over the side. The line drifts, the weight sways, and currents carry it at an angle rather than straight down. Sailors would wait, watching the rope vanish into darkness, uncertain if it would ever reach the bottom. Sometimes it never did, or if it did, no one could be sure whether it had touched rock or snagged on a hidden slope. These limitations didn't stop people from trying. In the late 18th and early 19th centuries, expeditions began to take a more systematic approach. Britain, with its growing naval power, had a strong interest in mapping and measuring the seas. The famous voyage of HMS Challenger in the 1870s is remembered today for its role in creating the field of oceanography. But even before Challenger, there were attempts to probe greater depths. Naval vessels would sometimes carry spools of hemp rope thousands of meters long, along with heavy iron weights. When lowered into the ocean, the rope would be let out carefully, foot by foot, until resistance was felt. Sailors would mark the rope in intervals, usually with knots or pieces of cloth, so they could estimate how far down the weight had travelled. But hemp rope had problems. It swelled with water, stretched under its own weight, and broke under strain. A rope lowered several kilometres into the sea might lengthen so much that its measurements were meaningless. When the rope came back up, soaked and twisted, it might carry nothing more than a smear of mud. It was slow, exhausting work, and it was almost impossible to trust the results. By the middle of the 19th century, interest in the deep sea had grown for another reason: the telegraph. The idea of laying telegraph cables across the ocean floor meant engineers needed to know exactly how deep those floors were and what kind of terrain the cables would encounter. Suddenly, accurate measurements were not just matters of curiosity, but matters of global communication, and miscalculation could mean broken cables and failed connections. So expeditions were launched with the goal of mapping the seabed more carefully. The United States Navy and the British Admiralty were among the first to take this challenge seriously. In 1852, the American ship Dolphin recorded what was then thought to be one of the deepest soundings, over 3,000 fathoms, which is more than 5,000 meters. Soon after, the British ship Cyclops measured even deeper waters. Each time the rope was let out farther, sailors were confronted with the staggering scale of the ocean. The depths were not just hundreds of meters, but thousands. Numbers that once seemed impossible began to appear in logbooks, and yet even these attempts were shallow compared to the true abyss that no one yet suspected. A major breakthrough came with the HMS Challenger expedition of 1872 to 1876. This was not just a naval mission, a scientific one, designed to study the deep ocean systematically. The Challenger carried over 300 kilometers of rope, along with an array of dredges, nets, thermometers, and other instruments. It sailed nearly 70,000 nautical miles around the globe, taking hundreds of soundings along the way. For the first time, the ocean floor began to emerge not as an imagined void, but as a real landscape, full of ridges, plains, and trenches. One of the most famous of these soundings was made in 1875 in the Western Pacific. The rope descended over 8,000 meters before it struck bottom. The site became known as Challenger Deep, though at the time no one realized it was the deepest point on Earth. For the scientists aboard, it was simply another astonishing number in a journey full of them. They recorded temperatures near freezing, samples of fine mud, and traces of life even from these crushing depths. The data they brought back transformed human understanding of the sea, filling volumes with observations that laid the foundation of modern oceanography. Still, the method was imperfect. Even Challenger's measurements were plagued with uncertainty. Currents pulled at the ropes, making them sag or drift. Sometimes the weights detached, giving false readings. A rope lowered to 8,000 meters might indicate a depth of 8,200 or 7,800, depending on conditions. Precision was elusive, and the abyss remained shadowy despite these monumental efforts. It wasn't until the 20th century, with the invention of sonar, that the ocean floor could be mapped with confidence. Instead of ropes and weights, scientists now used sound. They would send a pulse of sound downward and record how long it took to bounce back from the seafloor. The speed of sound in water was known, so the time delay could be converted into depth. This was faster, more reliable, and capable of covering large areas systematically. For the first time, the true shape of the seafloor came into view. Mountains, canyons, ridges, and trenches appeared in the data like a ghostly landscape unveiled. The Mariana Trench itself emerged from these sonar surveys as the deepest known feature. Its contours were mapped, its depth confirmed at over 11 kilometers. What rope and weight could only guess at, sonar revealed with clarity. The edge of the map had shifted, and in its place was a new frontier, the Abyssal Trench, the deepest scar on the planet. But it is worth pausing on those early attempts, those centuries when sailors leaned over wooden railings and fed out endless coils of rope into the sea.
Yeah.
Their
Triple
tools were
check
simple,
this is
their
right.
results uncertain,
Alright.
but their efforts carried a spirit of persistence.
So all the way
They knew
back
they might never
to
see
this.
the bottom,
Or
and yet they tried. They lowered their weights, marked their ropes, and wrote down their numbers. Each sounding, whether right or wrong, was a step toward understanding. And even if they could not know it then, their efforts were the first links in a chain that would one day connect human curiosity to the floor of the deepest trench on Earth. Those first measurements were not just data, they were a reminder of scale, a confrontation with the immensity of our own planet. To stand on the deck of a ship and let ropes slip endlessly into the water was to feel small in a way that no mountain or desert could convey. The ocean was not just wide, profoundly
I'm
deep, deeper than anyone had
doing
imagined.
front.
And in that depth lay mysteries still
Loop.
untouched, waiting for the next generations to probe them more precisely. As soundings became more reliable and scientific voyages multiplied, the ocean floor slowly
I'm
began to
shutting
take
you.
form on maps. No longer was it an unbroken flat plain hidden beneath the
See?
waves. Instead, evidence
Focus.
pointed to a
Here.
landscape as varied as the land above, with
And we're on
peaks,
his.
valleys, ridges, and
I'm going
unexpected
through the front
plunges.
one closest to
Among all
us.
these discoveries, one region
And
in the
blue.
Western Pacific began to stand out, not because it was convenient to reach,
Blue.
but because the numbers that came back from it seemed almost impossible. In the late 19th century, after
Front.
the Challenger expedition
Blue.
had already reported depths beyond 8,000 meters, other ships began to record even more dramatic soundings. Many of these came from naval and commercial expeditions
Shallow
traveling
butter.
through the Pacific
Like-
on routes that skirted the Philippines, Guam, and the
focus.
Marianas. Time and again, when lines were
Front.
lowered in certain areas east of
Focus.
the islands, the results suggested depths
Front.
that surpassed
Blue.
anything measured elsewhere on Earth. At first, some suspected error. Ropes could still drift, weights could still detach, and sometimes results simply seemed too extremely incredible. But as more ships passed through and more measurements were taken, a pattern began to emerge. By the early 20th century,
That's how we're gonna
scientists
do
were
the
convinced there was a
cuff,
great
so it
trench in the
kind
floor
of-
of the Pacific, an enormous
That's the
scar formed
thing.
by forces deep within the Earth itself. It stretched for over 1,500 miles, curving like a crescent parallel to the chain of volcanic islands that bore the same name. The Mariana Islands gave their name to the trench,
I think I only
honoring
did
Queen
this
Mariana of Austria. Though the
twice
title
or
of the
3
trench
times
was
on the
adopted
other
much
side.
later than the islands themselves had been christened. The breakthrough that truly revealed the trench
We're
came with
almost
the advance of
done.
sonar. During the First
And
World
then we're
War,
gonna
the need to
steam it.
detect submarines had driven rapid
And then
improvements in
technically I can
acoustic
go bed.
technology. By sending sound pulses into the sea and recording the echoes, navies could estimate the distance
This
to a
dude's
hidden
voice
submarine.
is super calming, so it does
Scientists
make me
quickly
sleepy.
realized the same method could be applied to the sea floor. What had once required hours of lowering rope could now be done in seconds with much greater precision. Throughout the 1920s and 1930s, survey ships equipped with echo sounders began to cross the Pacific systematically. Each ping that travelled downward and returned carried with it a piece of the hidden landscape below. When these soundings were compiled, they revealed features that astonished scientists. The ocean was far from flat. Ranges of
Ugh, trying to
underwater
figure this
mountains,
out.
now called mid-ocean ridges,
My eyes are
stretched
giving up,
across
but
entire
I
basins.
can't give up.
Deep plains extended for thousands of
I
miles.
promise.
And here, in the Western Pacific, the seafloor plunged abruptly into a trench deeper than anywhere else on the planet. The Mariana Trench was no longer rumor or error. It was mapped, outlined, and confirmed as the deepest natural point on Earth. Its greatest depth, Challenger Deep, would not be fully measured until later, but by the middle of the 20th century, its place as the ultimate abyss was already recognized. It
What'd you get way
represented
over
the
there?
limits of exploration, the
Here.
farthest downward point
Grab
that
a
could be
few.
found without leaving the planet. For geologists, it was evidence of massive tectonic forces, where one plate of Earth crust was sliding beneath another in a process called subduction. For biologists, it was a potential habitat unlike any other, where life had adapted to crushing pressures, freezing cold, and eternal darkness. For everyone else, it was a reminder of mystery, a place so remote and extreme that it might as well have belonged to another world. To put its discovery into context, it helps to think of how human understanding of the Earth was changing at the same time. In the early 1900s, people were just beginning to grasp the idea of continental drift, the theory that continents moved across the surface of the Earth over millions of years. The oceans, once thought of as passive basins, were revealed to be active, dynamic, and deeply connected to the planet's geology. The discovery of the Mariana Trench fit into this shift perfectly. It was not just a hole in the ground, but a visible sign of tectonic power, where crust was being recycled into the mantle. The planet, it turned out, was far more alive than anyone had imagined. But beyond geology, there was still the wonder of scale. When scientists announced that the trench reached nearly 11 kilometres down, people struggled to comprehend it. Numbers are abstract, but comparisons help. Imagine Mount Everest turned upside down and sunk into the Pacific. Its peak would still be more than a mile beneath the water's surface. Imagine a commercial airliner cruising at altitude. That is about the same height as the trench's depth. For those accustomed to thinking of mountains as the ultimate measure of size, this was a revelation. The Earth was just as extreme downward as it was upward. Of course, confirmation of the trench did not mean understanding it fully. In fact, it raised more questions than it answered. What creatures lived down there? How had they adapted? What were the temperatures, the currents, the chemistry of the water at those depths? Was it possible for humans ever to descend to such an extreme place? The trench was not just discovered, it was opened like a door, inviting questions that would drive decades of exploration. Even today, with advanced mapping and countless surveys, the trench holds an aura of mystery. Part of this comes from its inaccessibility. Only a handful of human beings have ever reached its bottom, and only for brief moments. Robotic probes and remotely operated vehicles have visited more often, but the trench is vast, and each expedition samples only tiny parts of it. To say it has been discovered is not to say it has been understood. Much remains hidden in its folds, waiting patiently in the darkness. But to appreciate how remarkable that first discovery was, it helps to think of the perspective of the time. Imagine the moment when naval officers and scientists first saw the sonar readings, when they realized that the ocean floor fell away deeper than any mountain rose above the surface. Imagine how they must have felt, confronted with a number so large it defied intuition. The Earth had offered up one of its greatest secrets. Not
For all hair types.
Ew.
Formulas targeted to your hair type. Straight or fine, wavy or frizzy,
Curly.
coily or dry.
We're for all hair types.
Unlock your best hair yet. For being you, available exclusively from Melbourne.
I didn't know you love your hair.
I mean, it's easy to spot me on the court, I bet.
But you've always been like that. See me? Before you hear me. All done.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Not so fast. I love you.
At Capella University, you'll learn skills in your courses that you can apply in the workplace right away.
Cuando Juneteenth dice que los tiernos y jugosos McCrispy
Why
Squares
is it in
son su plato
Spanish?
favorito de todos los tiempos. Tú solo sonríes y dices,
Crazy.
hello, bienvenidos a...
When I take food out of my Bosch refrigerator,
I feel like the best version of myself.
not in the stars, but beneath the sea. And just as explorers of earlier centuries had drawn dragons in the margins of their maps, scientists of the 20th century now filled in the blanks with soundings and charts, replacing myth with measurement. The discovery of the trench was not one event, but a gradual unveiling. It was the accumulation of countless soundings, each a small contribution to a larger picture.
No.
It was the work of sailors who lowered ropes into darkness, of engineers who built echo sounders, of scientists who compiled numbers into maps. No single person can be credited with the discovery. It was, like much of science, a collective achievement. But together, their work transformed the unknown into the
Oh
known.
my
Built the
goodness.
Mariana Trench from rumour into reality. And as soon as it was confirmed, attention turned naturally to the next question. What lay within? Knowing it existed was only the first step. To truly understand it, people would need to go deeper, not just with instruments, but with vessels strong enough to withstand the crushing pressure. The story of discovery was complete, but the story of exploration was only beginning. When the numbers first began to circulate, they didn't feel real. 11 kilometres, nearly 36,000 feet, trench deeper
Excuse
than
me.
any other on Earth. To scientists who worked with measurements, the figures were astonishing. To the public, they were nearly incomprehensible. It's one thing to hear that the Mariana Trench is the deepest known point in the ocean. It's another thing entirely to try and imagine what that means in the scale of daily life. The truth is, the human mind struggles with extremes. We are comfortable with the size of things we can see and touch. A house, a tree, a hill. Even a tall building in a city can be grasped by craning our necks upward. But thousands of meters
Hello,
of water
are you
pressing
alright?
down into darkness. That pushes far beyond instinct. To begin to imagine the scale, it
Don't
helps to anchor
ever
it against things more
ask
familiar.
me how I weave
Think
in
first of Mount
ends.
Everest, the
I don't
tallest
know if
mountain
this
above
is
sea
right,
level, standing just over
but, like,
8,800 meters high.
I guess I
If you
could
pick
show
up
y'all.
Everest and drop it into the trench,
Sorry, I went
its
even in here.
snow-capped peak would still vanish beneath more than 1.5 miles of seawater. The highest place on
Eric,
Earth
get
would be
out.
swallowed, with no trace visible at the surface. For people
like,
accustomed to thinking of mountains as the ultimate
When
measure
I
of
go
vertical
weave in
size,
ends,
this comparison begins
I
to give
go
perspective.
through the
The
front loop
trench is not just deep,
and
it
come
is
here.
deeper than the tallest landforms
Front
tall.
loop.
Another way to think
Mirror.
about it is by comparing
And
it
then
to
you
the
go
flight of
back in
airplanes.
through that
A typical
stitch that the
commercial
front
jet
loop is
cruises
from.
at about
You
35,000
bring
feet.
a yarn
Passengers look down on
over.
clouds, mountain ranges, and
Pull
sometimes
through.
even the curvature of the earth. That
And then I
altitude
just
feels
kind of do that all the
impossibly
way
high when
down,
you're
and
strapped
then like I
into a
might
seat,
come back
watching the
the
world
other
shrink
way,
below.
or like I might
Imagine
tie off
standing
and then
above the
not tie
clouds,
off, but like
you are beneath the
redo a
ocean.
slip knot,
The
kind
depth
of,
of
you
the
know,
trench is
and then
roughly
keep
the same
going
as the height
even
of
more,
that
and then I'll
flight.
pull the
If you
end
reverse
tight
the
and cut
situation,
a little bit,
taking
and
the
then
airline and placing it on the
readjust.
seafloor of
And
Challenger Deep,
it's been pretty good
every
so far.
passenger would be encased in black water, with more ocean above them than air normally separates them from space. Skyscrapers, too, offer another perspective. The world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai, rises about 830 meters, an engineering marvel that towers over the city, dwarfing other buildings around it. And yet you could stack more than a dozen Burj Khalifas on top of one another and still not reach the surface if they were placed inside the trench. Even the most impressive human structures become insignificant compared to the depth of the abyss. Consider also the pressure. At the surface, we live under 1 atmosphere of pressure, the weight of the air above us. It's so ordinary we don't notice it. But descend just 10 meters underwater and you add another atmosphere of pressure. Divers feel it in their ears, a squeeze that intensifies the deeper they go. At 30 or 40 meters, scuba divers require special training and equipment to avoid dangerous effects on the body. At 100 meters, few ever venture, and those who do must use highly specialized systems. By the time you descend to the bottom of the Mariana Trench, the pressure is over 1,000 atmospheres. It's equivalent to placing 50 jumbo jets on top of you. That unimaginable force would crush the strongest submarines of the early 20th century like tin cans. Even modern steel hulls require reinforcement and engineering far beyond ordinary design to survive. And yet, despite how inhospitable it sounds, life does exist there. Small, resilient creatures with bodies adapted to withstand the pressure make their homes in that crushing environment. Some have flexible membranes instead of rigid structures, allowing them to bend rather than break. Others rely on unique chemical systems to keep their cells stable.
Hold on.
For them, the trench is not
This just turned into
it is
a
simply
mess.
home. But for humans trying to comprehend it, the sheer numbers stretch the imagination. It helps to think about time,
Okay.
Imagine lowering a weight into the trench on a rope, as sailors once did. Even if it sank at 2 meters per second, faster than most heavy objects realistically descend in water, it would take an hour and a half to reach the bottom. That's 90 minutes of falling straight down, through layer after layer of darkness with no pause. By the time the weight touched
turn the light
bottom,
up.
the ship above would have drifted miles on the surface,
Yes.
pulled by wind and current, while the rope stretched far behind. That kind of scale is not just physical, but temporal.
Oh no.
It takes time to fall that
I'll
far.
slip not.
The trench is not only deep, it is long in duration.
I'm gonna start
So
the
deep
like
that the act
collar.
of reaching its floor feels like a journey in itself. And then there is temperature. The surface of the Pacific can be
So
warm,
I'm just gonna get it
inviting, sunlit.
off
You
camera.
descend into the abyss.
Not off
The
camera, but
temperatures
down
drop
here.
until they hover near freezing.
You can
Just
go over
above the
there.
sea
Don't
floor,
be shy.
the water is only a
Well,
few
be
degrees
super
above
shy.
zero.
Go over there.
It's not frozen because of the immense pressure, but it is cold enough to sap the
But all
energy
I
of
do
anything unprepared. The contrast between the
is-
tropical surface and the icy depths only adds to
slip
the sense of
stitch.
scale. It's not just
am going
distance, it's a complete transformation
To
of
crochet
environment.
one,
To make the size
just
more
to give it a
tangible,
little more foundation,
scientists sometimes
and
compare
then
the trench to canyons
keep it
on
lined
land.
up.
The
And
Grand
slip
Canyon,
stitch
carved by the Colorado River
to the
over
markers.
millions of years, is about 1.6
Right.
kilometers deep at its maximum. Standing on the rim
So
and
we're
looking
gonna do
down,
that.
visitors often feel overwhelmed by the vastness of the chasm. But the Mariana Trench is nearly 7 times deeper. Imagine standing on the floor of the Grand Canyon,
Beautiful.
looking up at walls so high you
Go
could stack 6 more canyons above them
here.
before reaching daylight. That is the
And then
proportion we're dealing with.
I'm
Even
going
with
to
these
split it.
comparisons, the trench retains an element of incomprehensibility. The numbers are so large they resist easy visualization. That difficulty in imagining is part of why the trench feels so mysterious.
And I'm just
It
going
exists
to
at the edge
do.
of what our minds can comfortably picture.
See it split.
And perhaps that is
So
fitting.
like I'm just
The
going to
deepest
do
place on
a
Earth should
single
not be easily grasped.
crochet
It should
all the
feel
way around
overwhelming,
the
humbling,
best I can
even a
into
little
like all these
unreal.
little holes, you know,
Yet the scale is
to
not
make
just
like
about
a
numbers.
nice,
It's about what those
collar
numbers
border.
mean for exploration.
I guess.
To reach the bottom requires equipment strong enough to endure pressures far beyond ordinary design. It requires vessels that can function in the dark, in the cold, with no possibility of rescue if something goes wrong. It requires months of planning, years of engineering, and resources that only a handful of institutions or individuals can muster. That is why so few expeditions have ever reached Challenger Deep.
Sorry.
The scale of the trench is not only a matter of size, it is a barrier to entry, a reminder of the limits of human technology. And yet, as much as the trench dwarfs our
My
imagination,
hand had a
it
stroke.
also inspires it. To know that such a place exists
Okay,
on our own planet,
and then
hidden
we're
beneath the
gonna
Pacific, gives
To the
perspective on our
next
position in
stitch
the universe.
markers.
We
Get
often
in
look
here, hold
outward
on.
to space and imagine
We're
other
almost
worlds as
there.
mysterious and unreachable.
Don't get in there.
Here,
Thank you. It's not
beneath
your
the
turn
waves,
yet.
lies a place just as alien, just as extreme, and in some ways even less explored. It is possible that we know more about the surface of Mars than we do about the floor of the Mariana Trench. That comparison alone speaks to its
I
scale,
didn't think this
not
one
just in
through.
physical terms, but in
Because I would
terms
have
of
to
knowledge.
slip
The
stitch
trench
back.
is not a single point. It is a
Hmm.
vast system, stretching more than 1,000 miles across the Pacific floor. Within it are valleys, ridges, and slopes, each with their own conditions. Challenger Deep may be the lowest known point, but it is only one feature within a larger scar. To
Well,
map
let's
it all
see
would require
what we
countless
can do.
surveys, each crossing back and forth with sonar, building a picture piece by piece.
Keep
Even with
it
satellites that can
lined
estimate
up.
depth by measuring the way gravity affects the surface of the sea, the resolution is limited.
Fudge.
The trench remains partly a mystery because of its scale.
I'm all
It's too
tense.
large to be fully grasped at once, too
I
deep
hate
to be
doing
visited
this.
easily, too remote to be studied continuously. When explorers speak of standing at the rim of the trench,
Slip
they describe
stitching
a feeling of awe,
a
as if
garment
peering into a
together
bottomless void.
instead
ocean
of
simply
sewing it. I'm
falls
probably making
away,
a terrible
a
face.
slope that drops into
Instead of
blackness
sewing
with
it,
no visible
makes
end.
me
That impression of
Just
infinity is
anxiety.
another measure of scale. not of numbers, but of perception. It feels endless, even though we know it is not. The human mind interprets that kind of plunge as limitless, because it stretches far beyond everyday experience. And so, the scale of the Mariana Trench is both a scientific fact and a psychological experience. It is 11 kilometres deep, 1/500 miles long, and home to pressures 1,000 times greater than the surface. But it is also a symbol of the vastness of our planet, a reminder that there are places on Earth that remain as challenging and mysterious as the stars above. The trench forces us to think bigger, to imagine beyond our usual limits, to confront the immensity that lies hidden beneath something as ordinary seeming as water. From here, with the enormity of that depth in mind, it becomes easy to understand why pressure plays such a defining role in what happens there. For life, for exploration, for geology, the crushing weight of the ocean shapes everything.
Because I feel like if I would have just gone the other way, I wouldn't have had
Once you begin to picture the depth of the Mariana Trench, the next thought that naturally follows is what that much water actually does. 11 kilometres of ocean stacked above you isn't just distance, it's weight. Every drop of water carries mass, and when you pile billions upon billions of drops into a vertical column, more than 6 times deeper than the Grand Canyon, that mass adds up to something nearly impossible to imagine. It becomes pressure. Pressure
Anyways,
changes
I'm back to
everywhere.
where I need to be.
On the surface, pressure is so ordinary that we rarely notice it. Right now, whether you're indoors or outside, sitting or lying down, the air above you presses down with the weight of 1 atmosphere. That's about 14 pounds for every square inch of your body. Multiply that across your skin, and it comes out to several tons. The only reason you don't get crushed is that your body pushes back from the inside with equal force.
I should have started
You are,
with
in a
the
sense,
pink.
adapted to live
Since I
comfortably
had to
under a
like
blanket
restart
where you
anyways.
can't see.
We're
Even the
here,
smallest change in
we're
that
just
balance becomes noticeable.
sticking with
If
what
you'd flown in an airplane,
the
you probably
colorway
felt your
is.
ears pop as the pressure shifted in the cabin. If you've swum in a pool, you felt the squeeze in your sinuses after diving only a few feet down. Those sensations are tiny glimpses of what pressure really means. Now extend that thought. Every 10 metres you descend into the ocean adds another atmosphere of pressure. At 10 metres, you're at 2 atmospheres. At 20 metres, 3. At 30, 4. For scuba divers, those numbers quickly become serious. Breathing compressed air under such conditions alters the balance of gases in the body, and beyond
So
certain
close
limits,
to being
it
done,
becomes
chat.
dangerous.
Like,
Specialised training and equipment are
I'm
needed for
excited
dives
for
even
all
a
of
fraction of
this.
a kilometre deep. Yet the trench
Me.
plunges
I'm
to
excited
nearly
for
11 kilometres. That means that at the bottom, the pressure is over 100 atmospheres. To put it another way, it is more than 1,000 times what you're experiencing at this moment. Scientists sometimes compare this to elephants or jumbo jets sitting on top of you, because such comparisons at least give a hint of the scale. Imagine trying to withstand the weight of 50 fully loaded aircraft pressing down on a single point. Steel beams would crumple, concrete would fracture. Submarines built for ordinary naval use would collapse instantly. The ocean at those depths is not passive, it is actively crushing, pressing inward with unimaginable force. Anything that descends into the trench must be designed entirely around the goal of resisting or adapting to that pressure. And yet, life exists
around
there.
the neckline
This is
to
perhaps
just
the
kind of
most
give it
remarkable
that.
fact. For humans, the trench represents a hostile environment requiring advanced technology just to survive for a few hours.
I bet I should do
it is simply
backward
home.
for
Over
this
millions
one.
of years, evolution has produced creatures whose very structures are built to function under those conditions.
Right.
Instead of
So,
rigid
yeah,
shells or
here.
bones that would shatter,
Slip
many
stage
deep
that.
sea species have flexible
Sorry, I
bodies.
keep leaning in
Their
this
cell
way because
membranes are
I'm
reinforced with special
hi.
molecules that prevent them from
Because I'm
collapsing
just
under the squeeze.
so tired.
The proteins, the tiny machines that keep
Alright.
cells alive, are stabilized
So
by
this
unique
one,
chemical
we're gonna
adaptations
do
that stop them from
move.
unfolding under stress.
Thank you.
In some
We're gonna
cases,
do
entire species
that.
are known only from the trench,
Away from you.
perfectly
Furthest.
suited to its crushing
Gone.
embrace. And
Commercial. That means I can have a small break.
Americans, we can do anything we want, except one thing. We just can't stop
Break time.
being American. Vice.
Boomer.
Play choose, rock and roll, jazz, and blues. Rock and roll to
Next.
Listeners, that I think it's all about the fit, the feeling of effortlessness, but intentionality. Do something like shorts, a nice off blue.
Unable to survive in shallower waters where pressure is lower, the trench shows that life isn't fragile.
Some breaks
in the way
aren't
we
as long
sometimes
as
think.
others.
It is adaptable. It finds ways to persist even where forces seem overwhelming. For biologists, this is a
Alright,
profound
so
insight.
back.
If life can thrive under 1,000 atmospheres of pressure, perhaps it can also survive in the icy oceans beneath the crust of Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, or Enceladus, the moon of Saturn. The trench becomes a kind of model, a natural laboratory showing how extreme conditions need not mean lifelessness.
Don't
For
actually.
humans,
Oh gosh.
pressure remains
It's
a
gonna
barrier.
change
When
mid
engineers
crawler.
began designing vessels to
At least
reach
it's
the
in the
trench,
back when
they
it
had to consider not
changes.
only the strength of the hull, but the behaviour of every component. Wires, bolts, seals, even the glass in viewing ports had to be built to withstand forces far beyond ordinary design. In 1960, when the Bathyscaphe Trieste made its historic descent to Challenger Deep, its spherical crew cabin was made of thick steel, several inches thick.
We're going to
carefully
spend
shaped
so
that
much
pressure
time
would be
steaming
distributed
this.
evenly
It's not
across
even.
the surface. Even so, as it sank, the
What
explorers
about
inside heard creaks and
baggy?
groans as the metal
It's
adjusted
going to
the
be baggy.
squeeze.
My kid has the
At one
biggest
point, the
head.
outer window cracked under the strain, though the inner barrier held. They remained safe, but the sound was a reminder of just how close the line between success and disaster can be when facing the weight of an entire ocean.
Can you go
Modern
in?
unmanned submersibles
Miss
face
Van.
the same challenges. Every electronic system must be
thank you.
shielded. Every joint must be sealed. Batteries must be designed not to rupture under pressure. Even the simplest experiment, such as sending down a camera, requires protective casing strong enough to keep the crushing water out. And when objects not built for the trench are taken down, the results are dramatic. Styrofoam cups sent to the bottom emerge shrunk to a fraction of their original size, compressed by the weight of the sea. It is a vivid demonstration of how absolute the pressure really is. Even rock and geology respond differently under such conditions. Sediments at the bottom of the trench are compacted into dense layers. The immense pressure contributes to the way tectonic plates move and interact. In fact, the trench exists because of that pressure in the first place, formed where the Pacific plate is forced beneath the smaller Mariana plate, in a process that has shaped earthquakes, volcanoes, and island chains. The pressure is not just a consequence of the trench, it is part of the mechanism that created it. For anyone imagining what it would feel like to be down there, the answer is simple. Without protection, it will be instant death. A human body built for one atmosphere cannot endure even a small fraction of the conditions at the bottom of the trench. Lungs would collapse, blood would be forced into unnatural states,
That's
cells
crazy.
themselves would be crushed. This is why stories of freedivers plunging hundreds of meters, impressive though they are, can never be extended further. There is a hard physical boundary. The trench is not a place where humans can ever belong naturally. It is instead a
Yeah,
realm we can
I feel
only
like
visit briefly,
He
encased in
doesn't need a
steel
big.
and
He's going
technology,
to want it anyway.
separated from direct contact by
If we're
layers of
being
engineering.
honest.
Yet, despite how hostile it is, the pressure of the trench is also strangely reassuring. It demonstrates the raw, undeniable power of nature. In a world where human influence reaches into nearly every corner of the environment, the trench remains a place beyond our direct control. It reminds us that there are still limits, still boundaries that demand respect. For explorers, that pressure is both a challenge and a warning. It is the reason why so few have descended into the abyss, but it is also the reason why those who do describe the experience with awe, and even knowing the dangers, curiosity persists. People want to see what exists in that dark, pressurized world. They want to understand how life adapts, how geology shifts, how ecosystems function under such conditions. They want to test the boundaries of technology, to prove that even in the face of 1,000 atmospheres, exploration can continue. Pressure is not only an obstacle, it is part of the allure. It is what makes the trench extreme, mysterious, and worth studying. When you consider the scale of that weight pressing inward from all sides, you might expect silence, and in many ways, silence does dominate. But pressure also affects sound. At great depths, sound waves travel differently, moving faster and farther than at the surface. In the trench, the weight of water compresses everything, even the medium through which sound moves. What results is an environment where hearing becomes as important as seeing, because light cannot reach but sound can. Scientists who listen to the trench hear strange clicks, groans and rumbles, carried vast distances through the pressurized water. Some of these sounds come from earthquakes, others from distant storms, still others from creatures adapted to the abyss. Pressure not only crushes, it also carries, transmitting information in ways we're only beginning to study. To understand the trench, then, is to understand pressure. It is the defining characteristic of the abyss. It shapes the environment, the creatures, the technology, and the experience of exploration. It is what makes the trench unique, what separates it from the shallower seas that most of us know. The trench is not just deep water, it is a world redefined by pressure, a place where everything is compressed, compacted, and transformed by the weight of the ocean above. As soon as you picture the depth and the pressure of the Mariana Trench, another fact naturally follows. Light cannot reach there. Not the faintest trace of sunlight makes it to the bottom. Even before you approach the trench itself, long before, at a few hundred meters beneath the surface, the sun has already disappeared. At around 200 meters down, you enter what scientists call the twilight zone, where light is dim and blue. Shapes blur, colours fade, and vision becomes unreliable. Beyond that depth, sunlight is gone entirely. Everything deeper exists in perpetual night. The trench, lying more than 10 kilometers beneath the surface, has been in darkness for millions of years, that will remain so long after us. Darkness of this kind is hard to imagine because human beings live entirely in the light. Even at night we have stars, street lamps, screens, or the glow of the moon. True, total darkness is rare. Our eyes are not built for it. Spend a few moments in a darkened room and your pupils adjust, reaching for whatever faint light they can find. But in the trench, there is nothing for them to adjust to. There is no light from above, no glow from the moon, no hint of dawn or dusk. It is a blackness more complete than anywhere on the surface of the earth. And yet, strangely, the darkness does not mean emptiness. Life still thrives there, but it has had to adapt in remarkable ways.
So I could just
Some
leave it
species have
without
dispensed with eyes entirely, their ancestors having lost them over generations because they offered no advantage in a world without light. Others, paradoxically, have developed enormous eyes, capable of catching even the faintest glimmers, not from the sun, but from bioluminescence, the living light produced by creatures themselves. In this darkness, the only illumination comes from life. It's as if the trench has its own constellations, not above but within,
I don't know
made
if
of
I
tiny
like
organisms glowing
I
blue,
don't.
green, or red for brief moments, before vanishing back into black. Bioluminescence is one of the most extraordinary adaptations to darkness. Chemical reactions within cells produce flashes of light, used for communication, hunting, or camouflage.
Okay.
Some creatures emit a glow to
We
lure
need
prey
the
closer.
hair.
Others flash to startle predators. Still others use it to recognize mates in the vast dark expanse.
Scissors.
The trench is filled with organisms that glow in strange patterns, creating a landscape of moving sparks invisible to human eyes unless captured by special cameras. For them, light is not something that streams from the sky. It is a language written in flickers and
How much
pulses,
water do we have?
essential for survival. But not all creatures
Okay,
rely on
Phil.
light. Many have adapted in silence and blindness, using senses other than sight to navigate. Some detect vibrations in the water, sensing movement even in the absence of vision. Others rely on chemical cues. essentially tasting their surroundings as they drift or crawl along the seafloor. To us, this may seem alien, but in the trench, it is simply the way of life. When vision is useless, evolution leans on other senses. For humans trying to explore, the darkness is another formidable barrier. Cameras sent into the trench must carry their own lights, powerful beams that can pierce a small bubble of water but fade quickly beyond it.
Do you live up there?
In photographs and footage, the surrounding black seems absolute, swallowing light almost immediately. What we see in those images is not the trench as it usually appears, but a momentarily illuminated stage, lit by artificial lamps. Without them, the environment is invisible. Explorers sitting inside submersibles describe looking out of portholes and seeing nothing but their own reflections, unless their vessel's lamps are switched on. It is disorienting, a reminder that the abyss does not reveal itself willingly. This eternal night also affects the rhythms of life. On the surface, most organisms follow cycles of day and night, activity and rest. Plants open and close with the sun. Animals feed and sleep according to the rising and setting of light. In the trench, those cues are gone. Time does not pass in the same way. Organisms may follow other rhythms, perhaps linked to the slow drift of nutrients sinking from above, or to internal cycles built into their biology. But the day-night cycle, the most familiar of all patterns on the surface, is absent. It is an alien world, not because it lies on another planet, but because it operates outside the rules we take for granted. Darkness also plays tricks on our imagination. For centuries, people feared what might lurk in unseen places.
Going to
Myths of sea
pause.
monsters often drew their power from the idea of creatures hidden in black depths. Even today, part of what makes the trench feel mysterious is not
Where
just
is
its
it?
depth, but its invisibility. When you can't see, your mind fills the gap. The unknown becomes a canvas for fear and wonder
There.
alike. Sediments, feeding on chemicals instead of sunlight. Each of these creatures is a testament to life's ability to flourish even in darkness. What seems inhospitable to us is perfectly normal to them. The eternal night is not an obstacle. It is a condition of life, and life has embraced it fully. There is also something humbling about thinking of Earth in this way. We often imagine ourselves as living on a planet of light, with a glowing sun overhead and a moon reflecting its beams by night. But really, we live on an ocean planet, and most of it is hidden from sight. The trench is a reminder of that hidden majority. To study it is to confront the reality that light is not the rule but the exception, and that much of the biosphere thrives in conditions we might call invisible. For explorers, darkness is both a challenge and a wonder. It makes the trench difficult to study, but it also gives it a unique character. Unlike space, which offers distant starlight, the abyss offers no background glow. It is absolute. Cameras reveal only what is illuminated directly in front of them. Beyond that, the black is impenetrable. To sit in a submersible at the bottom of the trench is to sit inside a bubble of light surrounded by infinite shadow. Some explorers describe the experience as calming, others as unsettling, but all agree it is unlike anything on the surface. In a place where light has vanished, sound becomes the only language left. It might seem strange to imagine the ocean as anything other than silent, especially in its deepest parts. From the surface, standing on a quiet beach or drifting on a calm lake, the water seems hushed, a place of gentle waves and soft breezes. But beneath the surface, sound travels differently, and in the abyss of the Mariana Trench, it becomes one of the only ways to perceive what is happening. Where darkness hides everything from view, sound slips through with surprising clarity. Unlike light, which is quickly swallowed by water, sound moves faster and farther in the ocean than it does in air. That is why whales can communicate across vast distances, why naval sonar can detect submarines miles away, and why even the faintest noises from the surface sometimes reach unimaginable depths. In the trench, the pressure and temperature of the water alter the way sound travels, bending and guiding it through layers like invisible corridors. Scientists call this the SOFAR channel, a deep sound channel where the noises can be carried for thousands of kilometers. In effect, the ocean is wired for listening. So when microphones, or hydrophones, were lowered into the trench for the first time, scientists did not find silence. They found a soundscape, strange and varied, filled with signals both natural and artificial. Some of the noises were familiar, the rumbles of distant earthquakes, the echoes of underwater landslides, the rhythmic calls of whales far above. Others were more mysterious, unidentified clicks, groans, and pulses with no clear origin. In the deep, sound carries across enormous distances, so a noise made hundreds or even thousands of miles away might arrive faint but distinct at the bottom of the trench. Even storms on the surface can be heard. Rain falling on the Pacific creates a hiss that filters down, audible far below. Thunderclaps roll like muffled drums. Waves crashing and distant hurricanes send vibrations deep into the ocean's body. For a listener sitting at the bottom of Challenger Deep, the surface is not silent at all. It is alive with distant energy, translated into sound, carried down like a memory of the storm. Then there are the sounds of life. Many deep-sea creatures are not silent, carried down like a memory of the storm. Then there are the sounds of life. Many deep-sea creatures are not silent. Some produce clicks or pulses to communicate, others to hunt. Shrimp can snap their claws to create sharp bursts. Certain fish drum against their swim levels to create vibrations. Even in the trench, life announces itself, though the calls may be faint or difficult to interpret. For animals in complete darkness, sound is often as essential as vision is to us. It tells them where others are, what is moving, whether danger is near or food is approaching. Each click and rumble becomes part of a vast, unseen conversation. Humans listening in for the first time were surprised by just how busy it seemed. Expected a void, perhaps occasional groans of the earth itself, and instead they heard variety. It was not silence. It was a different kind of presence, one that revealed how active the ocean really is. The trench may be far from sight, but it is not disconnected from the rest of the world. Every quake, every storm, every passing creature leaves traces in its waters. Of course, not all these sounds are natural. Ships above, with their propellers and engines, send vibrations down through the sea. Sonar pulses from natural. Ships above, with their propellers and engines, send vibrations down through the sea. Sonar pulses from designed to detect submarines, some echo and hydrophone recordings. Even human industry, thousands of meters above, can intrude upon the deep. The trench, though remote, is not immune to the influence of civilization. Scientists studying the recordings often note how much of what they hear can be traced back to us, a reminder that even the deepest abyss is connected to human activity. And then there are the unidentified sounds, those that resist explanation, strange whistles, groans, and tones that do not match known species or natural phenomena. Some of these mysteries are eventually solved. Noise once thought mysterious turned out to be the call of a particular whale species, another the echo of shifting icebergs thousands of miles away. Some remain unexplained, odd signatures that continue to spark curiosity. For many, these unknown sounds are the most fascinating part. They remind us that the deep ocean still holds secrets, not only in its physical darkness, but in its acoustic world as well. One of the most remarkable aspects of listening to the trench is how it collapses distance. The hydrophone lowered into Challenger Deep may record sounds originating half an ocean away. An earthquake near Japan, a storm near Hawaii, a whale call from hundreds of miles north, all can arrive in the same recording, overlapping in strange harmony. The abyss is not isolated, but connected through sound. In a sense, the trench is an ear pressed against the body of the earth, receiving whispers from across the globe. Explorers who have descended in submersibles often describe how different sound feels in the deep. The vessels are sealed, so what they hear directly is muted, but the groans of the hull as it adjusts to pressure can be startling. Every creak is magnified by the knowledge of what surrounds them, a crushing force that allows no margin for error. Outside the sub, silence reigns to the human ear, but through instruments the water comes alive with signals. For people inside, it is like being cut off from one sense and given another, a reminder that perception itself is relative. The study of sound in the trench is still young, but it has already revealed a surprising amount. It shows that even at the deepest point on Earth, the ocean is not cut off. It is part of a global system of motion and energy, its waters vibrating with the memory of storms, quakes, animals, and human activity. Silence in the trench is not absence, it is filled with echoes. When people imagine alien life, they often picture distant planets with harsh landscapes, strange atmospheres, and bizarre creatures that look nothing like anything on Earth. Yet if you wanted to see something alien without ever leaving this planet, you would only need to look into the deep ocean. The trench, with its darkness, pressure, and silence, produce living forms so unusual that they feel like they belong to another world entirely. Scientists sometimes say that studying the deep sea is like studying space, not only because both are extreme frontiers, but because the creatures found there challenge our understanding of what life can be. The most obvious difference between trench life and creatures who are on surface is appearance. Without sunlight, there is no need for colours the way we're used to them. Green leaves, blue feathers, golden fur. All of these are tied to light. In the abyss, colours fade away. Many creatures are transparent, their bodies like glass, making them nearly invisible. Others are ghostly white or pale pink, with skin that reflects nothing because there is nothing to reflect. And then there are those that glow.
There she is.
Bioluminescence is so common in the deep that it could be called the trench's equivalent of sunlight. Flashes of green, blue, or red light pulse from the bodies of fish, jellyfish, and tiny plankton. Some produce steady glows.
Anyways, that's our live. That's it. That's all. That's goodbye.
Looks like drifting stars.